A $50,000 bride price, and on the wedding day, my future mother-in-law dropped dead. The bride, dressed in black for mourning, knelt before the casket. A wedding had turned into a funeral. I thought it was just a cruel twist of fate until I heard her say in a cold, flat voice, "Wait for me to mourn for 3 years. Then you can come back and get me." In that moment, it hit me. This whole marriage, from the very beginning, was a scam aimed at my family's life savings. But they didn't know one thing about us Millers. For 100 years, our family has lived by two rules. We follow the code, and we protect our own. I turned around, faced the town elders, and gave them a deep, respectful nod. I'm not going through with this, and I'm going to make sure they live to regret it. Well, my name is Jake Miller. I'm 30 years old. In our part of Kentucky, if you're 30 and not married, you're basically a lost cause. My mom and dad were worried sick, calling every cousin and friend they had until they finally set me up with someone. Her name was Sarah Lynn Hayes from the next town over. She was pretty enough, didn't say much. Seemed like a decent, quiet girl. The day we met, her parents sat there, circling every conversation back to one thing. If I wanted to marry their Sarah Lynn, the family gift was $50,000. Not a penny less. 50 grand. In a place like ours, that's not just savings, it's everything. My parents, through gritted teeth, drained their bank account. They borrowed from my aunts, my uncles, the neighbors, anyone who would listen. I remember watching my dad go door to door, his head hung low, passing out cigarettes he couldn't afford, his back bent like a question mark. My mom followed behind him, wiping her eyes, forcing a smile, promising everyone we'd pay them back, bit by bit. Some of our relatives sighed and pulled out their checkbooks. Others gave us a cold shoulder, saying times were tough for them, too. Those days were hell. I followed my parents everywhere, watching the gray spread in their hair, and it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I swore to myself that once we were married, I'd work my fingers to the bone. I'd pay back every dime and let my parents finally have some peace. The day we handed over the cash, Sarah Lynn's mom couldn't stop smiling. She promised the wedding would be in 10 days, and we'd get the marriage license the day after. She held my hand, calling me son, over and over, acting like we were the closest family. Sarah Lynn just stood beside her, blushing, twisting the hem of her shirt. She looked like the shy, sweet girl I'd hoped for. Watching her, I finally felt a weight lift off my shoulders. 30 years old, and I was finally getting a family of my own. The night before the wedding, my parents and I were getting the house ready. Mom had sewn a new quilt by hand, with two doves stitched in the center, the needlework tight and perfect. We had celebratory banners and red ribbons all over the house. Even the windows had little paper cutouts of hearts on them. Dad had slaughtered the hog we'd been raising for 2 years and had it smoking in the pit out back. The smell of barbecue drifted all the way down the road. He poured himself a couple fingers of bourbon and grinned. "Jake, you go get your bride tomorrow. You two start a good life. And hurry up and give me a grandson." Mom was beside him, dabbing her eyes, smiling through the tears. Yes, yes, we finally made it. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, too excited to sleep. All I could think about was the future. A wife, kids, a warm house. All the hard work would be worth it. The next morning, I was up before the sun. I put on a new suit I'd bought, shined my boots until I could see my face in them, and slicked my hair back. The wedding convoy was already gathering in my driveway, a line of pickup trucks decorated with white ribbons. A bunch of my cousins and buddies from town were there, everyone laughing and in high spirits. We blasted country music from the truck stereos and laid on the horns. The whole procession was a joyful, noisy parade. As we passed the old oak tree at the edge of town, the old-timers sitting on the bench outside the general store waved and hollered at me. "Looking sharp, Jake. You have a beautiful baby, you hear? Treat that girl right." I grinned and waved back, my heart full. But when we pulled up to Sarah Lynn's house, the cheerful atmosphere vanished. The front door was wide open, but the house was dead silent. No decorations, no welcome banner, not even a single ribbon tied to the mailbox. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Something was wrong. My friends in their trucks stopped behind me, their smiles fading. The music cut off. The only sound was the wind rustling through the pines. I was about to get out of my truck when Sarah Lynn's brother, Billy, stumbled out of the house. He was wearing a black shirt. His face was pale and joyless, his eyes swollen and red. "Jake, you shouldn't go in," he stammered, his voice thick with grief. What's wrong? I asked, grabbing his arm. My palm was slick with sweat. My mom, she's gone. Billy's words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I just stood there, frozen, the world tilting on its axis. Gone? How could she be gone? She was fine just yesterday. Yesterday, she was holding my hand, smiling, saying she couldn't wait to dance at my wedding. I followed Billy inside. The living room was draped in white sheets. A mournful hymn played softly from a small speaker, the sad melody seeping into my bones. Sarah Lynn was kneeling in front of a makeshift memorial, dressed in black, her body shaking with sobs. She looked like she could collapse at any moment. Her mother was laid out on a board, covered with a white sheet. Someone said it was a heart attack. Happened in the middle of the night. She was gone before they could even call an ambulance. A joyous occasion had become a wake. The wedding convoy was silent. The celebratory bourbon stayed in the trucks. The bright promise of the morning was smothered by a suffocating shroud of white. I stood in the yard, my mind buzzing, feeling like I'd been hit over the head with a sledgehammer. $50,000, a lifetime of hope, all of it turning to ash right before my eyes. The elders from my town who had come with me were seasoned men. My great-uncle, Earl, and a few other old-timers huddled together, whispering among themselves. Then Uncle Earl came over and put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Jake, son, I'm sorry for your loss," he said, his voice a low rumble. "There's an old saying around here," another elder, Pawpaw Joe, added. "A wedding's joy can't chase away a funeral sorrow. You should have a small ceremony first, then hold the funeral. It's better for you, and for the Hayes family." I nodded. I'd heard of things like that. It was an old superstition, meant to bring good luck out of bad. The Hayes' own relatives came over, their faces etched with worry. After a long, quiet discussion, they agreed. They looked over at Sarah Lynn, who was still kneeling and crying. "All right, let's do it the old way. Wedding first, funeral after. The girl needs a husband to lean on now." All eyes turned to Sarah Lynn. She was the bride, and now she was the grieving daughter. The final decision was hers. I walked over and knelt beside her. "Sarah Lynn," I said softly, "I'm so sorry. But we're all here now. Your mom would have wanted you to be happy. Let's just get married quietly." I offered her a tissue to wipe her tears. She looked up, her face a mess of tear tracks, her eyes puffy and raw. She looked right at me and shook her head. It was a firm, resolute shake. "No hosetaschen." No. Her voice was hoarse, but it carried a chilling finality. "My mother just died. How can I get married? I have to bury my mother first. I have to mourn her." I was stunned. So were the elders standing around us. Holding a funeral was right. Mourning was right. But nobody had said how long she planned to mourn for. I didn't push it. A person's grief is their own. She just lost her mother. I couldn't force her. For the next few days, I didn't mention the wedding. I spent every waking hour at the Hayes house, helping out. I helped set up for the wake, carried the casket, greeted guests, and served food to visitors who came to pay their respects. I did everything that was asked of me. When the incense at the memorial burned out, I replaced it. When they ran out of paper plates, I drove to the store. When visitors crowded the house, I poured coffee and made sure everyone had a seat. At night, during the vigil, Sarah Lynn would eventually cry herself to sleep, slumped against a wall. I'd sit beside her, watching over the memorial candles, staying awake all night. Everyone in town said I was a good man, a stand-up guy. They said Sarah Lynn was lucky to have me. The Hayes relatives were all polite and grateful, calling me a good kid. My own parents, though anxious, just told me to take care of Sarah Lynn. My mom even cooked a chicken pot pie and had me bring it over, saying Sarah Lynn was too frail to go through this alone. The funeral was proper and respectful. We gave her mother a dignified send-off. On the day of the burial, I walked with the procession for miles to the cemetery. I knelt at the graveside and said my own quiet goodbye to the woman who was supposed to have been my mother-in-law. That night, after it was all over, I thought Sarah Lynn would finally talk about the wedding. The dowry was paid. The date had been set. We were just one step away. Instead, she called me out into the backyard. The moonlight was cold, casting her face in shadow. She was still wearing her black mourning dress. Her face was pale. "Jake." Her voice was colder now, as cold as the autumn moonlight. "My mom is gone. I am heartbroken. I'm not in a mood to get married." My heart sank. I was about to speak, but she cut me off. You should go home. Come back in 3 years. You can marry me then. Boom. It felt like something exploded inside my head. 3 years? Come back then. I'm 30 now. In 3 years, I'll be 33. Around here, a man who's 33 and single might as well give up. My parents' hair was already white. They were waiting for a grandchild. And that $50,000 wasn't just a number. It was half a lifetime of my parents' blood and sweat. It was a mountain of debt we'd taken on from friends and neighbors. Sarah Lynn, what are you saying? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My voice was trembling. I said, come back in 3 years, she repeated, her tone leaving no room for argument. For these 3 years, I'll be in mourning. I don't want to think about marriage. Mourn for 3 years. My voice rose, anger flaring in my chest. What century are you living in? Nobody mourns for 3 years. Besides, that's something a son would do. You're the daughter, and you've got a brother right here. Billy was leaning against the doorframe, a cigarette dangling from his lips, smirking at me. Not once, through this whole ordeal, had he ever called me his brother-in-law. I don't care. This is what my mother would have wanted, Sarah Lynn said, turning her face away. Her voice was hard as stone. If you're not willing to wait, then we can just forget it. Forget it? Those two words were a knife in my heart. Forget it? What about my $50,000? What about the debt my parents had humbled themselves to take on? I was shaking with rage, but I was speechless. I drove home and told my parents. My mom collapsed onto the floor, sobbing and slapping her thighs. Why is my life so hard? We scraped together all that money, and now this. $50,000. How are we ever going to pay that back? My dad slammed his fist on the table, cursing, saying the Hayes family were nothing but liars and cheats. He was too angry to eat dinner. He just sat on the porch steps, chain-smoking, the ground around him littered with cigarette butts. The next morning, our yard was full of people. All the elders of our family, the uncles and cousins. The Millers were a big family in this county. We had roots, and when one of us was wronged, the whole family showed up. The old men sat on the porch, smoking their pipes, the air thick with smoke. I squatted on the ground, telling them everything, from the first meeting and the dowry demand, to the wedding day tragedy, to Sarah Lynn's 3-year ultimatum. The yard was silent, broken only by the soft hiss of the pipes. Finally, Uncle Earl, the oldest and most respected of them all, knocked his pipe against the porch railing. They're taking us for fools, he said in a low, hard voice. His words landed like a stone in the quiet yard. Jake, you listen to me, Uncle Earl said, his eyes sharp. Something's not right with that family. 3 years of mourning? Bullshit. Pawpaw, Joe chimed in, his whiskers bristling with anger. Our way, when a mother passes, the daughter mourns for a year at most. Sometimes they're married in 3 months. A 3-year wait? That's a damn excuse. That's right, another uncle added. I don't think that Sarah Lynn girl wants to mourn. I think she just doesn't want to marry Jake. $50,000 is a hell of a lot of money. You think they're just planning to keep it? Of course they are. That brother of hers, Billy, is a no-good bum. He's into gambling, owes money all over the county. I bet they used that 50 grand to pay off his debts. The yard erupted in angry chatter, everyone furious on my behalf. My parents stood by, their eyes red, waiting for the elders to decide what to do. Uncle Earl raised a hand, and the yard fell silent again. I did some asking around, he said slowly, a chill in his voice. That Sarah Lynn girl had a high school boyfriend. Fella named Dylan. He left town to work somewhere up north, but he came back a few weeks ago. My heart stopped, for a terrible thought began to form in my mind. Uncle Earl looked at me, then continued. And last night, I had one of the boys from town hang around the bar over in their neck of the woods. Heard that Billy kid drunk off his ass, bragging to his friends. What was he saying? I asked, my palms sweating. He said his sister was a genius. Scammed 50 grand out of some dumbass to pay off his gambling debts. Uncle Earl's voice was cold as ice. He also said she'd never marry you. The plan was to wait 3 years until you gave up and called off. That way, they wouldn't have to give back a single dime. Some dumbass. Those words stung like needles. I had busted my ass for them, helped them through their funeral, served their guests, stayed up all night at their vigil. And to them, I was just a fool. A mark. I was shaking, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles were white. They'd gone too far. Too damn far, my dad seethed, stomping his foot. The faces of the elders in the yard were grim. This wasn't just about a broken engagement anymore. This was fraud. This was a direct insult to the Miller family. This was them taking a crap on our name. Uncle Earl, what do we do? We'll do whatever you say. That's right, Earl. You tell us what to do. We can't let this go. 50 grand. We're not letting them get away with it. The elders all looked to Uncle Earl. He took a long drag from his pipe, silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. We play their game, but we play it out in the open. Everyone leaned in. Jake, listen close, Uncle Earl said, looking me straight in the eye. You paid the $50,000 dowry. By the rules of these hills, that makes you their son-in-law in all but name. And a son-in-law has every right to live in his wife's family home. Tomorrow, you pack a bag and you bring some gifts. You go over to the Hayes house and you tell them that since Sarah Lynn's mother is gone and the girl needs support, you, her intended husband, are moving in to help out. If they dare say no, you ask them if they're calling off the engagement. And if they are, they can return the $50,000 right then and there. Uncle Earl paused, a glint in his eye. And another thing, around here, once the dowry is paid, the couple is allowed to be together. It's an unspoken rule. You move in, you find a way to be with her as a husband. If you get her pregnant, let's see her try to pull that 3 years of mourning crap. She'll have to marry you then. And if she refuses to be with you, then it's her breaking the deal. She's the one backing out. We'll have the moral high ground, and the Hayes family won't be able to show their faces in this county again. Who would ever let their son marry into a family like that? Who would ever do business with them? It was a brilliant plan. My eyes lit up. It was a trap, and it was completely airtight. It put all the pressure on them, and we'd be in the right no matter what they did. The other elders nodded in approval. That's smart, Earl. The old ways are the best ways. Yep, that's how we'll do it. Let's see what they say to that. Jake, don't you worry. We'll all go with you tomorrow. We'll have your back. We'll get some of the boys and a few of the church ladies. Have them film the whole thing on Facebook Live. Let everyone in the county see what kind of people the Hayes are. I looked at the determined faces of my family, and the heavy weight in my chest finally started to lift. This was family. When you get knocked down, they all stand up to fight for you. My parents looked relieved, a flicker of hope in their eyes. Jake, you go tomorrow and you hold your head high, my mom said, taking my hand. I will, I said, nodding. A fire was lit inside me. A fire for revenge. Sarah Lynn, the Hayes family. You just wait. I'm coming to collect. 5 the next morning, I was up at dawn. I put on a clean shirt and stood tall. My parents had packed 2 big boxes of gifts, good bourbon, cartons of cigarettes, coffee, and sweets. Only the best. The family elders were all there, along with a few of my younger, tougher cousins. We formed a convoy, heading for the Hayes town. A few of the ladies from our church came too, holding their phones up on selfie sticks, ready to start a Facebook live stream and let the whole county be the judge. We pulled up to the Hayes house. The door was open, the yard quiet and desolate. The black mourning ribbons were still tied to the porch railing, a grim reminder of the funeral. Sarah Lynn was sitting on the porch steps, staring at her phone. When she saw our trucks pull up, her face went white as a sheet. She jumped to her feet like she'd seen a ghost. Billy came running out of the house, a cigarette in his mouth. When he saw our crowd, he flinched, and the cigarette dropped from his lips. I grabbed the boxes of gifts and walked into the yard. I put on a smile, but my voice was firm. Sarah Lynn, I'm here. Your mother just passed. I know it must be hard on you. A young woman all alone with a brother who can't be counted on. I'm your intended husband. It's my duty to be here and help out. Starting today, I'm moving in. To take care of you. I set the gifts down on a porch table and looked her straight in the eye. Sarah Lynn shot up, her face pale, her lips trembling. No, you don't have to. Jake, we don't need your help. You should go home. Her voice was laced with panic and guilt. She couldn't meet my gaze. Before I could answer, Uncle Earl stepped forward, his sharp eyes landing on a few of the Hayes relatives who had come out of the house. Now hold on a minute, Uncle Earl said, his voice calm, but carrying an undeniable authority. Our Jake here paid $50,000. That makes him your son-in-law. For him to come here and help take care of his future family, that's just common decency. You don't turn a man away for doing the right thing. The Hayes relatives looked down at their feet, their faces turning red. They knew the local customs. They knew we were in the right. That's right. Our Jake is a good man, offering to help, and you're turning him away?" Papa Joe added. "Or did you just decide to take the money and run?" The relatives shuffled their feet, looking even more ashamed. Just then, Billy lunged forward, pointing a finger at me. "Jake, you get the hell out of here. My mom just died, and you're here causing trouble. What kind of man are you?" That kid had some nerve. Before Uncle Earl could say a word, one of my younger cousins stepped up, grabbed Billy by the collar, and got in his face. "You watch your mouth. Say one more word, and I'll knock your teeth out." Billy started to tremble, but he still tried to act tough. What are you going to do? Gang up on us? What are we going to do?" Uncle Earl said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone. "Jake is here to help. You, on the other hand, what do you do all day? Gamble, drink, cause trouble. What good are you?" He took a step closer, his eyes locked on Billy. "And another thing, don't think I don't know you've been seeing that nice girl from our town, Jessica. You keep this up, and I'll make one phone call. Jessica's daddy is a good friend of mine. You'll be lucky if she ever speaks to you again. You'll die an old, lonely man." Jessica. At the mention of her name, the color drained from Billy's face. He was crazy about her. Jessica was the prettiest girl in our town, and he knew a dozen other guys were just waiting for him to screw up. All the fight went out of him. He looked like a deflated balloon, head down, not another word out of him. Sarah Lynn watched it all, her face getting paler by the second. She bit her lip and looked at me, her eyes a mixture of pleading and pure hatred. "Jake, I really don't want to get married. I just want to be left alone. Can't you understand that?" "Understand?" I laughed, a bitter, angry sound. The frustration of the past few weeks finally boiled over. "I understand you? Who understands me? I'm 30 years old, Sarah Lynn. I can't wait 3 years. My parents nearly killed themselves borrowing money for you, their hair turning gray with worry. Who understands them? If you don't want to get married, fine," Uncle Earl said coldly from the side, his words hitting their mark. "Give us back the $50,000. Every last cent. We'll call it even and go our separate ways." That was the kill shot. Her face went completely white. She wrung her hands, her knuckles turning bone white. Return the money? Billy had already used it to pay off his debts. What was she going to give us? Just then, the church ladies pushed through the crowd, their phones held high. The screens were lit up. They were live. The Facebook live stream already had a few hundred viewers, mostly people from the surrounding towns. One of the ladies, a woman named Carol who wasn't afraid of anything, aimed her phone right at Sarah Lynn and spoke in a loud, clear voice. "All right, folks, listen up and tell us what you think. Our town's Jake Miller gave this family $50,000 to marry their daughter, Sarah Lynn. The wedding was supposed to be last week, but her mother passed away. So Jake, being the good man he is, helped them with the funeral, served their guests, stayed up all night at the vigil. And as soon as the funeral's over, she tells him he has to wait 3 years to marry her." Another woman chimed in. $50,000. That ain't pocket change. Jake is 30 years old. He can't wait 3 years. And now, not only is she not letting him in the house, she's refusing to give the money back. Y'all tell me, what is this if not a scam? The comments section exploded. OMG, are you serious? That's just plain evil. 50 grand and a 3-year wait? Who does she think she is? That Hayes family is trash. They were planning to keep the money all along. Go get him, Jake. Get your money back. Wait, I heard her brother used the money to pay off gambling debts. This is fraud. Sarah Lynn stared at the phones, her face ashen, her lips trembling. She couldn't form a single word. She swayed on her feet and nearly fell, one of her neighbors catching her just in time. Stop filming, she cried, her voice cracking. This is a private family matter. It stopped being private when you took $50,000 of our family's money. Carol shot back. Then, with a few taps on her screen, she posted a couple of photos to the live stream. The pictures had been taken by one of my cousins the night before. He'd been sneaky, and the shots were perfectly clear. They showed Sarah Lynn dressed up in a nice top and jeans, not morning clothes, at a bar in the next county over. She was laughing with a young man, her head thrown back, a wide smile on her face. The man was her high school boyfriend, Dylan. The background was lit with neon signs, the place loud and crowded. It didn't look like any kind of mourning to me. The live stream went berserk. Whoa, that's how she mourns? At a bar? Laughing her head off? Who is that guy? That's not Jake. She's cheating. I knew it. She never wanted to marry him. She was just waiting for her old flame to come back. This is disgusting. Taking his money and then running around with another man. Sarah Lynn, you better explain yourself. The Hayes family needs to give that money back, or they're going to be run out of this county. The angry comments flooded the screen, a tidal wave of community outrage. Sarah Lynn looked at the photos, her face turning the color of death. She staggered back. No, that's not real, she shrieked, her voice shaking. Those photos are fake. They're photoshopped. It was a pathetic lie. The photos were crystal clear. Her smile was bright and undeniable. The Hayes relatives looked like they wanted the ground to swallow them whole. They stared at the dirt, unable to look at us, unable to look at the cameras. They knew the family name was ruined. Seeing his sister cornered, Billy lunged forward again, pointing at Carol. You old hag, I'll kill you for posting those pictures. He charged, his fist raised. Hold it. Two of my cousins moved like lightning, tackling him and pinning him to the ground. Billy thrashed and cursed, but he was trapped, helpless as a landed fish. You've got a lot of nerve, Uncle Earl said, looking down at him with cold fury. Acting like a wild animal in front of the Miller family. You clearly don't know your place. The yard was in chaos, and that's when we heard the sirens. The sound grew closer, and a sheriff's car pulled up to the house. The sheriff's department had arrived, and the town mayor was with them. Someone had called them, reporting a public disturbance. The deputy parted the crowd and stepped into the yard, surveying the scene with a frown. What's going on here? Who called this in? Sarah Lynn scrambled toward him like he was her savior. Officer, they're harassing us. They forced their way onto our property. They're filming us and spreading lies, she wailed, putting on the performance of a lifetime. That's a damn lie, Carol from my town shouted, her voice booming over Sarah Lynn's sobs. We're here to get our family's money back. She took $50,000 from Jake Miller, and now she's refusing to marry him or return the money. And while she's supposed to be in mourning, she's out at bars with another man. We've got pictures to prove it. Carol shoved her phone into the deputy's hand. Look, this is the proof. She's not mourning. She's committing fraud. The deputy took the phone, looked at the photos, then back at Sarah Lynn. His expression hardened. The mayor stepped forward, and after getting a quick rundown of the situation, his face grew grim. This was an ugly business. Fraud, theft, and a public scandal. If this wasn't handled properly, it would set a terrible precedent for the whole community. Sarah Lynn, the mayor said, his tone serious. You accepted $50,000 from Jake Miller. Is that correct? She looked at the ground, her shoulders shaking, and said nothing. And you told him you would not marry him for 3 years. Is that also correct? Still, she said nothing, tears splashing onto the dusty ground. And were you, in fact, at a bar with Dylan last night? Her body trembled like a leaf in a storm. And did your brother, Billy, use a portion of that money to pay his gambling debts? That question broke her. She snapped her head up, her eyes wide with desperation. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The mayor sighed and turned to the Hayes town elder. Jim, what are you going to do about this? Your people have gone too far. Jim's face was beet red. He mumbled, It was wrong. They should return the money. Return it? You bet they'll return it, my papa Joe said coldly. $50,000. Every last cent. Hearing this, Sarah Lynn's tears started flowing again. I don't have it. You don't have it. I scoffed, all sympathy gone from my voice. You had it when you took it. Your brother had it when he was paying off his bookie. You had it when you were buying drinks for you and Dylan. She had no answer, only choked sobs. The deputy spoke up. Miss Hayes, you're legally obligated to return that money. If you refuse, we can take this to court. You'll not only have to pay it back, but you could also face criminal charges. Her crying grew more frantic. She collapsed to the ground, beating her fists on the dirt. Finally, with the sheriff and the mayor mediating, Sarah Lynn agreed to return the money. But she only had $25,000 left. The other $25,000 was gone. Billy had paid his debts, bought a new phone, new clothes, and blown the rest. The Hayes elder, Jim, was so furious he lunged at Billy. You worthless piece of trash. I'll kill you. He started kicking and punching him. Billy just curled into a ball on the ground, howling, not even trying to fight back. The mayor looked at Sarah Lynn. What about the other $25,000? You can't just let that go. She sobbed. I'll pay it back. I'll get a job and pay it back a little every month. A little every month? I said with a cold laugh. I can't wait that long. My parents have debts to pay now. Here's what we'll do, the mayor said after a moment. Sarah Lynn will sign a promissory note for the remaining $25,000, a legally binding IOU. She'll pay $2,000 a month. If she misses a payment, we go straight to wage garnishment or a lien on this house. Having no other choice, Sarah Lynn agreed. With a trembling hand, she signed the note and pressed her thumbprint onto it. Her elder, Jim, still seething, looked at her. You want to be with Dylan so bad? Fine. Call him right now. Tell him you need 50 grand to marry him. If he's so in love with you, let him pay off this 25,000. Let's just see what kind of man he really is. Sarah Lynn hesitated, then pulled out her phone and dialed Dylan's number. The phone rang and rang before he finally picked up. She was crying. Dylan, I need $50,000. Can you please help me? Before she could finish, his voice came through the phone, annoyed and sharp. 50 grand? Are you crazy? Where am I going to get that kind of money? Your business with that Jake guy has nothing to do with me. We're done. Click. He hung up. The dial tone echoed in the silent yard. Sarah Lynn stood frozen, the phone still pressed her ear, her eyes vacant. She couldn't believe that the man she had thrown her life away for was nothing but a coward. He was never in love with her. He was just playing a game. A few hours later, word got around that Dylan had packed a bag and left town. He wasn't coming back. He was scared the Hayes family would come after him for money. That news was the final straw. Sarah Lynn collapsed, letting out a wild, guttural scream, a sound of pure despair and regret. I watched her and felt nothing. She had made her bed. I took the $25,000 in cash and the promissory note, and with my family beside me, I walked away. Behind me, I could hear Sarah Lynn's broken sobs and the disappointed sighs of her own townspeople. As we stepped out of their yard, the sun felt warm on my face. I took a deep breath. The weight was gone. It felt good. Damn good. But it wasn't over. She signed the IOU, but Sarah Lynn had no intention of paying. She packed her things and disappeared. No one knew where she went. Her phone was disconnected, her Facebook account deleted. She had vanished. I took the IOU to the sheriff's office, but they said there wasn't much they could do until she was found. My parents started to worry again about the remaining $25,000, but I was calm. She could run, but her family couldn't. I could wait. 6 months passed. I got a job on a construction crew, working hard, making decent money. It was tough work, but it was honest. Life settled into a routine. Work, home, help my parents on their small farm. It was simple, but it was good. The people in town respected me for how I handled myself. Just when I nearly put the whole thing behind me, I heard the news. The state was building a new highway, and it was going to run right through the Hayes property. They were getting a huge payout from the government for their land. Over $1 million. I was at work when I heard. The brick I was holding nearly slipped from my hand. I smiled. It seemed like fate was on my side. I took my notarized IOU to the County Planning Commission office. I explained the situation and showed them the legally binding document. They took it very seriously. They confirmed that the Hayes family was due a payment of over $1 million, and it was scheduled to be disbursed soon. After a few meetings, the County Commission agreed to honor the debt. They deducted $25,000 directly from the Hayes payout and transferred it right into my bank account. The rest went to Billy as the only remaining heir on the property deed. The day the money came through was my mom's birthday. I drove into town and bought the biggest cake I could find, a rack of ribs for my dad, and a bottle of his favorite bourbon. That night, we sat around the table, celebrating. My mom looked at me, tears in her eyes again. But this time, they were happy tears. Jake, we finally made it through, she said. My dad took a sip of his bourbon and clapped me on the shoulder. That's my boy. You did good. Looking at their smiling faces, my heart felt full. That $25,000 wasn't just money. It was our family's dignity. A while later, we heard more news. Sarah Lynn had come back. She'd heard about the government payout and came home to claim her share. But by the time she got there, Billy had already blown through the entire $1 million. He'd paid off his old debts, gotten hooked on opioids, and lost the rest in high-stakes poker games and bad investments. $1 million, gone in just a few months. Worse, he borrowed more money from loan sharks and couldn't pay them back. When Sarah Lynn saw the empty house and her brother, emaciated, track marks on his arms, She was so shocked she vomited. She collapsed on the floor, howling a wild, insane sound of grief for her dead mother, her worthless brother, and her own ruined life. But it was too late, and it got worse. Her father, a quiet man who had never raised his voice in his life, couldn't handle the shame of his ruined family. One night, he walked down to the river and drowned himself. They found his body downstream a few days later, bloated and unrecognizable. Seeing her father's corpse was the thing that finally broke Sarah Lynn's mind. She snapped. She started wandering the streets of her old town, wearing rags, her hair a tangled mess, singing to herself and muttering, 50,000 dowry, 3 years. Dylan, she would smile at strangers, a hollow, chilling smile. Sometimes she'd pick cigarette butts off the ground to smoke them. Sometimes she'd steal candy from little kids. The townspeople felt sorry for her and would give her food, and she'd just grin her empty grin. As for Billy, the loan sharks caught up with him. They cornered him in an alley and beat him savagely, breaking his legs and arms. They beat him until he stopped breathing. They dumped his body in a ditch. No one claimed it. The Hayes family was gone, wiped out by their own greed and lies. I heard all this while I was at home, having dinner with my parents. My mom had made her famous pot roast. My dad took a sip of his beer and sighed. What a shame. My mom just shook her head and put another piece of meat on my plate. I took a bite. It tasted like home. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel guilt. The world has a way of balancing itself. They tried to steal my family's money and our dignity. They paid the price. It was justice. 10 while later, I started dating again. I met a girl named Emily from a neighboring town. She was kind and genuine, with big, warm eyes and a smile that made dimples appear in her cheeks. She didn't care that I didn't have much money or that I was a little older. We didn't have a big dowry. Her family asked for $6,000 for good luck. Our wedding was a huge celebration. The music was loud, the food was plentiful, and the whole town came to wish us well. It was even bigger than the party I'd planned before. I stood there in my suit, holding Emily's hand, and I couldn't stop smiling. Uncle Earl sat at the head table, raised his glass to me, and nodded. I knew he was proud. After we got married, Emily was a blessing. She kept the house spotless, helped my parents with their chores, and treated them with love and respect. I worked harder than ever, moving up from a laborer to a foreman on the construction site. My pay doubled. A year later, our son was born. He was a healthy, chubby baby who cried with the lungs of a giant. Holding him for the first time, my heart felt like it would burst. We named him Andrew, which means strong. We call him Andy. We just want him to have a safe, peaceful life. My parents were overjoyed. They doted on their grandson, telling everyone they met that the Miller line would continue. Our life just kept getting better. I paid off every last debt and even saved enough for a down payment on a small house in town. It wasn't big, but it was ours. Sometimes Emily, Andy, and I drive back to my parents' place for Sunday dinner. When we pass the old oak tree, the old-timers are still there, sitting on the bench, enjoying the sun. They always smile and wave, and come over play with Andy. No one ever talks about Sarah Lynn or the Hayes family anymore. They were like a bad storm that passed through, leaving nothing behind. Every now and then, when I drive through our old town, I see a woman in rags wandering by the side of the road, muttering to herself. It's her. I'll slow down for a second, look at her, and then press the gas pedal and drive away. The sun is bright, shining on the windshield. Emily is in the passenger seat, humming a lullaby to our son, who is giggling in his car seat. I look at the road ahead of me. It's long and open. Life goes on, and everyone who tried to wrong me has paid their price. That's enough.